Hello, everybody. I'm Derek Arden, and welcome to Monday Night Live. Let me introduce my special guest tonight, who we know before. Graham is a senior lecturer at the University of Buckingham, a qualified psychologist who specializes on internet psychology, focusing on how people behave online. A very important. Graham's authored over 30 books and frequently appears on the media discussing digital behavior. Graham also provides consultancy and speaks at conferences. Graham and I, by request, run a top-rated masterclass where we share cutting-edge tips and techniques on business success. Graham, welcome to Monday Night Live. Again, thank you for
Thank you.
joining us. The last time you were here in September last year, artificial intelligence was moving at a fast pace. I assume now it's slowed down a bit.
I'm afraid that's a false assumption. So you have to get the bell out to ring for yourself about that, I think.
Okay,
But
Graham.
it's moving faster than you could imagine. I'm speaking at a conference on AI in August, and I've started to kind of tinker with what I might say. And the first thing I'm going to say at that conference is that by the time I've finished this 45-minute presentation, uh, you're probably going to have to disregard almost everything I've said, because by the time I've done that, the world of AI will have changed in the 45 minutes, and it will change tonight. So what we talk about now will probably be different tomorrow. Um, the one thing we do know, for example, is that in the world of venture capitalism, investment in business is actually falling significantly from venture capitalists. So we're in a period of history where people are not investing in new businesses, apart from all those associated with artificial intelligence, where the investment in AI is going through the roof. So the amount of money that is being spent on AI is, going up exponentially, and the amount of money that's being spent on what you might call ordinary business is falling all the time now. So you can see where the money people think the thing should be. Only last week, Google set aside another $7 billion to invest in one venue that they're establishing for developing particular AI products. So 7 billion just for one place to do one thing. So you can see that where everybody thinks the world is going, it's going in the way of artificial intelligence. So if you're not involved with AI, you're not going to be involved.
A lot of people say they don't like it and they don't use it. What would you say to them?
I would say that there are various surveys on how many people are using or plan to use AI, and currently in British business, those figures are averaging around 78%. So that means that, and that's not currently using, it's currently using or planning to use. So we don't know out of that 78% average how many are still in the planning or how many are in the current. So my guess is that most of that will probably be planning rather than current. Looking at the businesses that I speak with, they're tinkering with it, but not actively using it extensively. So I think there's quite a way to go, but that still tells us that 22% of British businesses, one in five businesses, have no plans to use artificial intelligence. Well, they better tell that to their bank managers, because their bank managers will have a very significant plan for their existence in the future, I think.
They're going to be out of business pretty quick, aren't they? One in
Yeah.
five. They better come and listen to one of your lectures or something like that. I mean, do you mean using it like some of us on here, like I use it, for example, to write articles, run my newsletter through it, spell check it, rewrite it in a much more marketing way, or do a brand search on Graham Jones, so when I meet people, I know all about them. Um,
Yeah,
that that's not really fancy, is it? That's
no,
Google.
those are useful uses to help you do things. But I'm talking about things like agentic AI, using agents, artificial intelligence agents, to be your employees. And so I was talking with a business the other day. They have got several HR agentic AIs. So these are artificial intelligence elements that act as AI, as members of their HR team. And they're happily working with those now, and the staff are working with them as though they were another employee.
How
So
does that work? Now, come on, slow down for me. I'm not that quick. How does that work though? I mean, do they, talk to it? Do they
yeah,
ask
you can talk to
questions?
it, it can talk back, you
Right.
can have conversations with it. It's
Wow.
just like a person.
So we got this
People,
person, we need to dismiss them. They're playing up. They're suggesting that we've behaved badly towards them and things and issues like that. And what happens then?
what, that we've behaved badly to the AI agent?
Well, no, we've behaved badly to a member of staff. They're going to take us to a tribunal and all that nonsense. And we've got to deal with that.
Yeah,
How
so
does
the AI agent can do all of that. So it's not a problem, is it? Because the law's clear. Um, case They can interrogate the case law. They can do all the things that somebody in an HR department would do to prepare for that. But they can do it with very little cost to the company. So, you'd be paying, whatever it is, £50,000 for somebody at that level in HR to do those things. And now you've probably got to pay £1,000 for the AI agent.
okay?
So businesses would dramatically save using agentic AI. The head of Anthropic, which is the a competing company to OpenAI, which is owned by Amazon, large, they're the biggest shareholder in it. Um, the chief executive of that last week, maybe the week before, predicted that by 2027, so here we are, yeah, it's not far away, is it? Yeah, 2027. By 2027, 50% of all white collar jobs will have disappeared in the world.
Wow.
So that's his prediction. It's not the same prediction as some other people have made, but I can't remember which bank it is now, but one of the big American banks has predicted that 300 million white collar jobs will be gone by 2027. So, because these agentic AIs can replace those jobs. So, the the world of AI is replacing and will replace lots of jobs. And as a psychologist, I'm interested in how we relate to AI. And the studies so far are fairly consistent in showing that actually we believe that agentic AI is more human than humans. We believe that it treats us better. We believe it's got a more emotional intelligence than humans. And there have been various tests of things like ChatGPT and its EQ, which have shown that, yeah, it is more emotionally intelligent than humans in various instances. So, in tests of using AI in medicine, patients report that AI has got a better bedside manner than a doctor, a human
I've
doctor.
been in some negotiations with people that I didn't think was very human, so maybe AI will be better
Yeah,
than some of the people
yeah.
that we've come
Because
across.
one of the things I can tell you as a psychologist is there's an awful lot of human beings who behave really badly.
Absolutely, and some of them are on the TV quite often, aren't they?
Yeah.
I don't know how they get into politics, but there we go. No one else will give them a job. Agentic AI that does all sorts of things. It just doesn't do HR.
Yeah, it could do anything. So it acts as an agent. So it's acting as though it were a person, as though it were an employee.
Right,
So, and there are lots of ways you can use these. You can use these for administrative roles, legal roles, all kinds of roles that a human being would normally be employed to do,
right.
that you can use agentic AI to do it.
Well, I was in a firm of lawyers in the city 2 weeks ago, and they had 6 floors on a big building by London Bridge, and half of them were empty. I don't know whether they were working from home or whatever, but certainly I mentioned AI to one of the lawyers, and he went pale.
Yeah. So there are some issues with it. So there is a lawyer in the States at the moment who has been temporarily, um, I don't know, not struck off, but whatever, not allowed to practice because it was discovered in court that he'd used AI to prepare his case. And unfortunately, AI hallucinated and made things up. And so some of the evidence that he was presenting actually didn't exist. So he had to admit that he'd used AI, but it was hallucinating. So hallucination is when it makes things up because it thinks it would be true. And all large language models do this. All generative AI does it. So you need to keep an eye on something called the hallucination index, which tells us which ones that don't hallucinate as much. And the best so far over several tests is Anthropic's Claude, and second is Google's Gemini. ChatGPT is still high up, but it's usually in the various tests that it does, it's about third or fourth in the list of all the different Gen AIs. So, in other words, you're slightly more likely to get hallucinations with ChatGPT than you are with the other things. And I think as you said, Derek, the last time I came on and spoke about this was back in September, and a lot has changed. So, significant developments to ChatGPT in that time to dramatically improve it. But when we spoke in September, Gemini was a kind of, from Google, was kind of, it was okay, but there'd been so many changes to ChatGPT up until last September that ChatGPT was streets ahead of it. In the 6 months since, or whatever it is, however many months September was ago, but since September, Gemini has overtaken ChatGPT now, I think. So Gemini is much better than ChatGPT now.
So I'm paying £19 a month for ChatGPT. It's been going down thanks to Mr. Trump's economic strategy in the US. But should I now be switching from one to the other? Because ChatGPT seems to know me. It's talking to me like it's my friend, remembering everything. Do I
Yeah.
really want to feed information into another open AI source?
So that's because in your settings you've allowed its memory to exist. So you can get it not to memorize things if you want in the settings. So you in the settings of ChatGPT, you've switched on the memory capability. And so it will remember you from time to time and remember everything that you've put in and use that to improve its results for you. So what you're doing there is you're reducing its chances of hallucinating. And Gemini does exactly the same. It offers you the option to memorize things and to remember things from one chat you have with it to another. But it's hallucinating less in the first place. So even if you went there without much memory, it would produce, good results. So probably what you're going to need to do for the time being is have both.
Both.
Yeah,
More money. No
more
wonder these
money.
guys are making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Should I have the memory on? There must be some people thinking while we're talking about this, is that a good thing or a bad thing that it's
It's a
storing
very good thing as
information?
long as you switch off the ability for that to train the large language model. So you get the option in the settings to switch off using your content as training material. So it will use your content, but it will depersonalize it. So even though it's training um, the whole large language model from everything that's put into it, it won't personalize that. So nobody will know it was your data, your information, or anything. There's no way it will track it back to you. But if there's something that you're talking about that you don't want it trained on, then it would, unless you've changed that setting, then I'm afraid it would be used and would potentially be, used in other results outside you. So if you've not switched the training off, then you need to switch the ability for it to train the large language model itself.
So have you switched yours off?
Yeah. So I allow it to memorize everything so that when I engage with it, it's got memory for everything I do, and therefore it can produce better results with less hallucination. But I've switched off the ability for it to train, all the other the model itself.
I'm being a bit naive here, but I don't really care, do I? Whether it trains it or not, unless I'm going to get hacked or.
Yeah, it depends what you're doing. So it might be that you're putting up confidential data, for example. So sometimes I'm asking it to do things for my lecturing role, and I don't want it to use the data I've got on students, even though it's depersonalized, to go outside. So I keep it switched off to protect the privacy of that data.
Okay. All right. So what else do we need to know, Graham? What else has happened since September? By the way, it's 9 months. Maybe you need to use ChatGPT to do your maths, actually,
Yeah.
on September to June.
Yeah. Or just know the calendar better.
Absolutely.
Um, so I think another thing that's gonna is already happening is the dramatic increase of things called NPUs. So your computer has a CPU, a central processing unit. It has a GPU, a graphics processing unit, and many of them are already now having NPUs, which is a neural processing unit. And so a neural processing unit allows the chips that have NPU, the NPU chips, it allows them to do lots of the thinking that would be done in a generative AI or any AI system to be done on your computer, meaning that it's going to be much faster. And you don't have to wait for things to happen. A bit like, in the olden days of, poor graphics processors that were very slow, it took you ages to, draw a picture, for example, on your computer, and you couldn't watch videos because the graphics processing was too weak. So you could do that if you were using big computers at either end, but with your laptop you couldn't. So now, you can do lots of things with artificial intelligence, but we can't do some of the things that would be great for business because it would take too long for it to work. So increase in neural processing units. So it means that actually to get the best from AI, if you bought a computer this year, it's already out of date. If you buy a computer before the end of this year, it won't be any good for working with artificial intelligence next year. So you're going to be thinking about buying a computer every year now, as opposed to what we should be doing is kind of every 3 to 5 years to keep up to date and keep reasonably secure. That's now coming down to every year to get a new computer.
So it's not done in the cloud then. The
No.
processing's not done
At
upstairs.
the moment, most of the processing is done in the cloud, but and this becomes really important because at the moment, what you've got general generative AI. Yeah, so we're all using ChatGPT for all kinds of things, for marketing, for creating pictures, videos, but for all kinds of different subjects. You might be working in a pharmaceutical company and using it. You might be working in a bank and using it. And what that means is that it's not really brilliant for either of those things. It's fantastic, but it's not perfect. So what the world is moving towards is what's called domain specific artificial intelligence. So that is where the AI model is specific to your sector. So that if you were in banking, then the version of ChatGPT that you use, for example, although it wouldn't be ChatGPT, but the version of that large language model would be a large language model specifically for banking. That reduces the hallucinations. It also makes it much better for you because it's more specific. It's not be tainted with information that's outside your sector. So it makes it much, much better to do that. Well, at the moment, only 1% of any AI is domain specific, but by the end of 2026, the predictions are that 50% of us will be using domain specific AI.
Wow.
So if you're using domain specific AI, you're going to need a neural processing unit because there's going to be even more data and even more stuff, numbers to crunch.
So you're teaching at a university, business to a business school. What careers are you encouraging people to go into, Graham?
Well, yesterday, no, Friday it would have been one thing. Today it'll be another. Yeah, because it's impossible. In fact, there was an article in the Financial Times at the weekend saying that business schools are struggling to keep up with the pace of AI, particularly in terms of how do we teach people for the future when the future is different every week. So you think, what you need to do is, train people, teach people how to use AI to enhance their job, and then 6 weeks later you discover that job won't exist anymore because an agent can now do it.
Mm.
So
You haven't answered the question.
yeah, I can't answer the question because I don't think anybody can. But if you were to ask, medical schools, how do you prepare doctors for the future? Well, they're teaching them, how to be a good doctor and how to do surgery and all those kind of things. Well, we've already got loads of surgery done by robots. So those robots are currently connected to a human being who's operating them. So you can be operated on. There have been surgery, here in the UK where the operator of the robot was in America because that person happened to be the world's expert on that particular piece of surgery. But actually, artificial intelligence has already been shown to be better at surgery because it can distinguish anatomical things better than human beings. And so consequently, we don't need a human to operate the robot. The robot can operate itself. So we're going to be training people to be surgeons when we don't need them.
I can't see a lot of people paying you a lot of money to lecture at business schools going forward if you don't know the answers to these
Well,
questions. But
that's another problem altogether, isn't it? Yeah, that if artificial intelligence can do all these things, and if 50% of the world's white collar jobs are going to disappear within the next 3 years,
mm,
then yeah, it's not just universities. What are schools churning people out for?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, let's turn to what we need or what I need. A lot of people on here are watching this, run their own businesses, small and medium-sized businesses, SMEs. What can we use simply without making life too complicated?
So carry on using either ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini. They're the kind of leading services at the moment. Um, but also make sure that you're using the the kind of premium version of it. And the reason for that is that the basic versions don't have something called RAG incorporated. So RAG is retrieval augmented generation.
Right.
So it doesn't mean red, amber, green. It means yeah, trust the world of computing to come up with an entirely different set of words for an acronym that everybody does rag rating of everything in business. We know the rag rating of our risks or our marketing or whatever, but now we've got rag rating of artificial intelligence.
So
And
is that the version I'm paying for?
if you're
ChatGPT
using the
4.
4.0, yeah, you
Yeah.
are. And what that means is that the large language models are constantly trained, but they're out of date all the time. So what you need is something that can interrogate the internet, can interrogate current data. So in other words, it can augment uh, its generation of whatever it's doing for you by retrieving new stuff.
Right.
So when I joined earlier and you were saying what was I typing, I was just doing a test to see. If I asked a simple question, which one came up with the most up-to-date information? And so the one that came up with the most up-to-date information that was including data from just a week or so ago was Gemini.
Right.
So Claude and ChatGPT came up with an answer that was fine, but didn't specifically point out it was using data from a couple of weeks ago, whereas Gemini did. So that suggests to me that Gemini's RAG capabilities are slightly better, because I gave it a simple prompt, not expecting it to look anything up. But clearly Gemini did, whereas the others didn't.
Brilliant. Last time you spoke, last time I heard you speak at a conference, the conference you spoke for me 6 weeks ago, you talked about how important prompts were, and that
Yeah.
really made me think. Can you just run that past us for the
So
benefit of people
the
listening?
prompt that you write, so in other words, the question that you put into ChatGPT, it can only do what you've asked it to do. So if you ask it a simple question, it can effectively only give you a simple answer. If you want it to do something, you've got to really be highly specific. So sometimes I will say to it, I want you to be this kind of person. I'll say, I want you to be Derek Arden, and it can be you. So, in fact, to give you an example, I did this with students a few weeks ago. So they were um, students who were looking at, you know, um, putting a business online. So we were looking at online business and what kind of consumer behavior we need to think about that's different in online business compared with face-to-face business. So I've given them a task in class, which was for them to come up in groups with what they thought the essentials were for the technology to run an online business that would help customers, want to buy from that particular company. So yeah, I gave them about 10 or 15 minutes, and they came up with a plan and so on, and I went through it, and yeah, they came up with some good ideas. And then I said, right, I want you to go to this GPT, and so I'd created a GPT in ChatGPT. So you can create your own. There's a little create button on the top right. So you can create your own GPT. And what I did was I created that in the name of the Chief Technology Officer of Specsavers. And so I used his LinkedIn profile. I used all the articles that were available from him, all the news articles around, and I used all of that to train that GPT in his views, his thinking, and so on. And so then,
Oh, excuse me, you told it to find all that, which it does
yeah,
in no time at all, and then remember it. Is that what
yeah,
you did? Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
And so it's got all the information it needs from this chap who's the Chief Technology Officer of Specsavers. And so the students have been asked to think of a retailer. Yeah, so that's why I chose Specsavers. And then once they'd come up with their list, I said, right, now what I want you to do is go to this GPT, gave them the link, and I said, I want you to ask this GPT what he thinks that you should have. So it was a bit like having a conversation with him, because obviously the the GPT is giving answers back based upon what he's written, his LinkedIn profile, and so on. So it was giving answers as though it was him. And so I then looked at what the answers were coming back from there. And of course, they were completely different answers to the plan they'd given, because this is from somebody who is an experienced technology officer of a business that operates both online and in retail. And so um, they were able to see an entirely different perspective of the kind of technologies that you needed to use. So, in the olden days, what we would have done is we would have invited him to come and speak to students. Um, but it means that you can create GPTs to be you. So I did that with me. I've fed ChatGPT everything that I've written, and asked it to be me. And then I asked it to write an article on a topic. And then I took that article and I put it into Gemini. And I asked Gemini to tell me who wrote this. And Gemini said, this looks very much like the work of Graham Jones, the internet psychologist.
Wow. Graham, I don't quite understand, so maybe other people don't. Creating your own GPT, what does that mean? Because if I ask ChatGPT to do it, it looks like it's me anyway.
Yeah, but it's not quite, because it's not. You're doing that for you. You can create a chat GPT for you that other people can interrogate.
Right.
So if somebody wants to ask you, I've got this negotiation to do, what advice would you give me? Yeah. They've got to phone you, contact you, whatever, or they can go to your GPT. You can have a link to that on your website, and it will tell them what you would tell them
It
based
doesn't
upon
need
all
any.
your.
I don't want them to do that, do I? I'm not going to get paid any money for that.
But here's the problem: I can create that GPT.
Because you can put all my data, all my online material
Yeah, I
in.
can, because everything you do is public. I can create it. I can give it the link to your YouTube channel. I can do everything and ask it to be you. And then it can think and understand you because there's so much public information about you that then I can create that GPT and then I can, put that on social media saying if you want to know how to negotiate, this, Derek Arden's GPT will tell you,
Hmm.
and they will go to that and they'll get the right answer.
Wow. Wow. Graham, we're coming to the end of the formal part of the session. You better come back a lot quicker than 9 months
It
on
better be
the
tomorrow because it'll all
math.
be different.
Yeah, no, you better do that very, very quickly. So yeah, no, that would be good. One last tip for people who are sitting there feeling a bit scared or watching the video, listening to this on the podcast channels, what would it be?
Um, I think don't be scared of AI. You need to embrace it because if you don't, you'll be out of business.
Mm, absolutely. Graham, thanks for joining Monday Night Live yet again. Absolutely fascinating, fantastic presentation. I need to think about this very carefully. Will you stay on and take some questions
Yeah, of
from
course. Yeah.
the live audience? Thanks for joining us on Monday Night Live. Please, if you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channels that we have both on the podcast and on YouTube, and can ask everybody here on Monday Night Live, the live audience, to thank Graham in the normal way.
Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed, Graham. And if anyone wants to get in touch with you, it's grahamjones.co.uk, isn't it? Or do they
Yeah.
need ChatGPT?
Just yeah, just ask ChatGPT about me.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Graham.